Hello, people of the internet. So I have finally bit the bullet and read this book that everyone keeps telling me that I should read. I will admit I was a bit nervous about it at first, because I kind of am about things that are like so highly recommended. Like, surely it can't be that good. But I will admit it does live up to the hype. So basically, this story obviously follows Achilles, and the prophecy surrounding Achilles, and the fight in Troy and Helen. But it is told from the perspective of his kind of lover, and I'm going to completely butcher his name here, so I do apologise. His lover is Patroclus. I'm really sorry if I butchered that. But it essentially follows Patroclus, from being basically born, all the way up to his death. So it's spoilers, by the way. It starts off with him and his dad and his mum, and basically Patroclus was kind of an unassuming guy. He was the prince, but he was kind of unassuming, and he accidentally kills someone. He gets in a fight at the age of like 9 or 10, pushes them and they die after hitting their head and bleeding out. And he then gets exiled and sent to Achilles' kingdom, where his dad is welcoming and lets him in. And essentially, Patroclus, he and Achilles form this bond, which isn't necessarily at the start a romantic bond. It does start off as friendship, which I think is quite a nice undertone. They've not just been like, no, you're madly in love, you're gonna get together. But it then essentially follows Patroclus as he kind of in the background becomes Achilles' person. They're not dating, they're not really together, but they die for each other. And basically, it follows Patroclus as he follows Achilles from Achilles' kingdom to Chiron, who trains him, to then being told he has to go and fight in Troy to bring back Helen, who's been kidnapped by a king. And Achilles is quite a naive boy. He's not necessarily, he's been destined to kind of die in Troy fighting this war. I'm trying not to give too much away. And basically, Patroclus goes with him because he's like, I love you and I want to make sure you kind of stay sane. And to be honest, I wouldn't really be much without you. So he goes with him. At first, he doesn't fight. Achilles is quite standoffish in his stance. He's kind of like, don't fight, and then eventually he does fight, and his hubris does get the better of him occasionally, where he's like, I am like a god to these people. And basically Patroclus is there and he's kind of like, no, like, come back to me, you're not this villain, stop trying to be something you're not. And it is quite heart-wrenching because they go from these really young, naive boys who know they've got a destiny to fulfill, but at the same time they're just kids. And then they go to this war and there's this girl. They don't fall in love with this girl, but basically the commander slights Achilles and takes this girl. And Patroclus is like, you need to save her. Like, just because you're being dishonoured doesn't mean that she has to get hurt. And Patroclus kind of, I won't say betrays him as much, but he kind of chooses her over him because he doesn't think it's right that this girl is going to basically be this man's mistress. And essentially, Achilles is basically at this point blank refused to fight. He's been fighting with this army for like close to 10 years, and because he's been dishonoured, he basically refuses to fight. And Patroclus is like, you need to, like, people are going to die, Troy's going to come and kill us all, like, you need to fight, this is not okay, stop being so stubborn. So Patroclus eventually, this is a major spoiler for the ending, so if you haven't read the book, please leave this bit out. So Patroclus basically goes to this battle in Achilles' like armour, and he does eventually die. So the guy that Achilles has been prophesied to kind of kill is the one that kills Patroclus, and Achilles then, in a fit of rage, just basically slaughters him and like drags him around. And I think the whole basis of this book is, well, one, obviously love, because Patroclus and Achilles love each other. Two, I think a lot of it is to do with hubris. Like, he was so stubborn that he let a lot of people die. But I do think this book is really, really good. Like, I like Greek mythology anyway, so I am ever so slightly biased. And it is a very, very romanticised version of what happened with Achilles. And I think in the end of the book, it definitely goes on to show what grief can do to a person. It can destroy them. But I think the main point of this book is that there is a lot of queer representation, which I feel like gets forgotten about a lot in books, which is really good. It's very inclusive, but it's not in your face. It's not like this is the be all and end all. But I like how she does it. She does it in a very subtle, very kind of like it's always been there kind of way. Like not like it's always been there, but like she does it very subtly, and it's not like they meet and all of a sudden they're in bed with each other because they are just boys. It's a very gradual build-up of trust and tolerance, and I think it portrays the queer side of it in a very, very good way. And honestly, I think it's great. I think that this book brings a lot of valid points, not just about queerness, but about how the folly of men can kill. Achilles basically, just because he doesn't fight, lots and lots of people die. But he doesn't care because his pride is worth more. His legacy is worth more. What's going to happen after him is worth more. And it kind of shows how you can take this quite naive young boy and bring about all these ugly feelings. Like, at the end, Patroclus is literally on his knees begging him to fight, and he just won't. He won't do it. And I really do think it just shows the folly of men will be the downfall. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what? Like I said in previous, and I'm sorry this has been a very rambly review, I really, really didn't know if I was going to like this, because it's been so hyped up, and I do find a lot with like hyped up books, they fall short. This book did not. This book was everything it promised and more. I will admit, some of the things, if you're not into Greek mythology and you're not a very, I don't really know the word, but there's some words you may have to look up. She does use quite big words, but they are related to the Greekness of it all. So, like I said, I'm really into Greek mythology. Even I had to go look some things up because they just didn't make much sense until you knew what they were. But I would 10 out of 10 recommend this. I think it's a very good, well-written book, I think. And I mean, I absolutely love the cover. I mean, look at that cover. How beautiful is that cover? And I do think that the way she's written it is so enticing and so gripping. Yeah, 10 out of 10 recommend. 10 out of 10.